Okay, brother Eric.
Yes, Brother Taylor.
Okay, so let's start with your mystical meditation experience. What was that like the first time?
Well, for one,
Feels like the first time.
it was the first time. Thank you for making my first time so special.
Oh, you know how I do. A little bit of light and a whole lot of open heart and mind.
Yeah, that's the good loving I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, for one, most of the meditations that I've ever done have always been closed eye.
Right.
And so I think that was part of what appealed to me is in general, like it was just a new style of meditation altogether. And that
Yeah.
like I had no background on what the context of the open eye meditation was or anything. So I was going into it with literally fresh eyes.
Yeah. No
So,
preconceptions.
Yeah, no preconceptions. And I've done like guided meditations and a few other like types of basic meditations, but most of them are with like either stilling the mind into like a point of nothingness, which I think is, I mean, something that you said during the meditation that really stuck out to me was that like Western tradition, because of the way of our busyness and the world around us, that like our mind is a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And so when we shut off all of our senses, we're basically trapped in that whirlwind because we haven't figured out how to find our centering.
Exactly.
Or to be at the center of that storm.
Right.
So what was good about the beginning of the meditation was that we found the center of that storm, which was like doing the kind of like middle pillar type of meditation. And I've taken that, and I had done a little bit of that before, but like it's different to do it with a group and also to do it with guided instructions with people that are actively, projecting their consciousness in the way to be able to facilitate that.
Right.
So I felt it a lot more clearly there.
Okay.
And that's something that I've continued to take into my personal practices at home is finding that kind of like a balance point that's centering.
Yep.
And that basically opens up any activity that I do afterwards. I kind of get this like, I have connected to the grid. I'm one of the nodes in the network.
Okay. All right. Sweet.
So that was a really good foundation. And then going into the open eye meditation, I had kind of experimented with a little bit of that type of zoning out, kind of daydreaming type of meditation, but without intentional song and without like a focal point to be able to witness someone else holding that vibration and be able to kind of like tune into it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I guess in like a very high level way, and this comes up in a variety of different types of experiences, but maybe this story won't work for everyone, but in Fallout 4, or in like when you're going through the character creation process, you're staring at your character in the mirror.
Right.
And that's kind of what it feels like, is that like after a while you kind of recognize that like the body that's witnessing is an interface.
Yes.
And that when you stop interacting with the interface, you can kind of go into like the consciousness menu of the character.
Yep.
And you kind of like space out from, or you create like some distance between the thing that's observing and the observer of those experiences.
Right.
And that led to a whole bunch of other things. But I feel like high level, like that was kind of, finding that centering so that you could kind of clear the storm and you could see other people that are also sitting at the center of their own storm so that they have this serenity about them. And then once you're in that storm, being able to kind of like step out of the body or step out of just like the physicality of being and be able to witness like more fundamentally your energetic state and kind of all of the dross and all of the cruft that's kind of like caught up in that storm.
Yep.
Like a little tornado with a bunch of houses and a bunch of like random things in there, and you're like, what's that doing there? That doesn't seem like it's a good place for that.
Right.
So
it begins to reveal what's actually below the physical perception of reality.
Mm-hmm.
All of your likes, dislikes, fears, the chaos of your mind, all of it.
Yeah, with the video game analogy, like if I step out of being the player in the game and I go into the menu, and I'm kind of like taking account of like the feelings or the experiences or the resources or the stats, that like in that space, it's kind of like letting that flow of information come to
right.
kind of like be like the I don't know if judge is the right word, but you're kind of like evaluating all of that information that's coming at you.
Yep.
And it's a little bit more depersonalized. It's like
Right.
Eric as a character is dealing with these
Yes.
things.
Yep.
So me as the player, like what type of responses or strategies or, approaches really work with the situation that's
Right.
going on.
Yep.
So being able to kind of like step outside of like, the personality and just be as I am without like all of the Maya, all of the glamour.
Yep.
It was really powerful to be able to take that step back.
Okay. All right. There's so many ways we can go with that, but we'll save those questions for later. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Next is like, what was one, did you see anything? Did you experience anything any visual phenomena manifest?
Yeah. So the background that we had, I think, was brick walls or something like that.
Yes.
And
That you guys had.
Yes. Yes. That right. From our perspective, looking at
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
And so part of what was taking place is that like once you kind of like have the type of like you start to see that like your perspective is like a 2D projection, that your mind is
Yes.
creating the illusion of the third dimension as we kind of like pass through time.
Yes.
And so once you kind of sit still and everything around you is also sitting still,
Yep.
that 3-dimensional projection starts to collapse into like a 2-dimensional projection.
Right.
And there was two things that like very much stood out in the kind of extremes of that process. The first was that like, especially with the open eye meditation being like focused on the person that
Yeah.
you're witnessing,
Mm-hmm.
that when that person reaches a high enough state of frequency or vibration, and you're also able to tune into that, at least, in my experience, like when I was observing you,
Mm-hmm.
you started to like dissolve into the background, almost like a chameleon type of thing.
Yep.
And then at some point it was like totally gone. That like
Yes.
I could see like through your body, and I could
Yeah.
see the bricks behind you.
Right.
So there was like a transparency taking place
Yep.
that quite magical.
Yes.
If
Okay.
the idea that like this invisibility is something that like is witnessable when you're tuned in the right
Yes.
way, and that other person is also taking you along for that frequency ride.
Yes. Okay. So there's a couple things that happen there. There's a couple things that you picked up on there are a couple things you tuned into in terms of frequency, right?
Mhm.
So there's a couple things. One is your awareness slightly. Well, let me ask you this: what do you think, based on your own self-reflection and self-contemplation from the experience, what do you perceive was happening in those moments? Or like, what is your understanding of that?
Yeah, I guess the closest thing that like I could relate it to is like when you have a VR headset.
Yeah.
That like when you have the headset on, you're very much immersed in the space.
Yep.
And then once you start to like pull the VR headset off,
Yeah.
it's not, I mean, when you're pulling it off, like the amount of visual space that the headset is taking up obviously decreases. So like you can kind of feel like you're stepping out of, the digital world that you're immersed in to be in the real world.
Right.
So it kind of felt like that like I was able to recognize that the screen in front of me that I was like witnessing this experience was like a projection.
Yep.
And so like that's why I, mentioned that kind of like the idea of like us, perceiving 3-dimensionality, but then like once you're kind of like taking a step back from the computer screen, you can see that the screen itself is 2-dimensional.
Right.
That your, mind is perceiving the third dimension as it's kind of been curated for your eyes to see it that way.
Yep.
So when that starts to take place, it I guess like the way that we perceive seems to be like multiple screens layered on top of each other.
Right.
And so the screen that's like physical reality, like matter, is like one of those layers.
Okay.
And then there's a gradient that goes all the way up to energetic.
Yep.
And so when I was kind of like tuning out of like the physical kind of reality, I could start witnessing the energetic components of it. And so your invisibility was now like I wasn't experiencing you as a physical being, I was experiencing you as as an energetic being.
Right.
And so that's why like I could see through you, because
Yeah.
you can see through light. Like if light is shining
Yes.
through something, then you can see directly through it.
Right.
So that's kind of like the best way that I can kind of grasp
Amazing.
what that that experience is like.
You just explained it very, nerd scientific. And I appreciate that, because I'm much more, I'm like, I perceive things and know how to relate and understand them through this like sci-fi
Yes.
surfer bro view.
we have analogies that we connect the ideas through.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's talk about those experiences a little bit here. So basically, like, what happens in this meditation is that it is a meditation. It is a meditational exercise and practice of learning to consciously shift our awareness, to actually like exercise our awareness at a very intentional and attention-driven level. And so something that I feel is so important is like people sometimes don't either go deep enough in the study of meditation or in the practice of their spiritual pursuits to understand why they're doing certain things.
They're just listening to whatever someone else said, and they're
Exactly.
just giving that a shot.
Yeah. And the light meditation, the mystical meditation, if you were to strip down every single tradition to be devoid of dogma, of ritual, and you just strip it down to the essence,
The critical path.
you would get light, okay? And so what we are doing in this practice is we are learning to train our attention and shift our awareness at will.
What that kind of reminds me of is like most of the time breathing is an unconscious thing.
Right.
And when you start to do breath work, you make breathing a very conscious activity, and that through that, engagement with breath work, that you become much more aware of like, you're not breathing fully through your diaphragm, or that like the rate through which you're breathing is like, stressful or not maximizing
Correct.
Like, the amount of oxygen your body's getting. And so this is doing it for your consciousness or for your awareness
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
for your physicality through your breath.
Yes. And because, here's the thing. Awareness is the, first off, light is the manifestation of awareness. Okay? The light that we see, and we'll talk about this, is that, you can perceive all different qualities and depths of light because it's ultimately infinite in its expression. Well, the awareness is the same because awareness is infinite fractal expression of consciousness.
It's the I am manifesting through every perspective.
Infinity, exactly. So consciousness is eternal. There is awareness. Consciousness is awareness, but not awareness.
I see.
You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Okay. So when you go into the deeper levels of samadhi, there is depths of experience of consciousness, and at a certain point, it just there is no individuality. There is no individuality in eternity because it's eternal consciousness, which is undivided, undiluted. Okay, and so one of the first major samadhis, not major, but like one of the first samadhis is like witnessing all of your desires simultaneously, or the essence of all of your desires, and having a degree of mergence with it through the dissolution of the self. Then it's the direct experience of infinity. You're merging the individuality with the infinite expression of eternity. And then beyond that, you dissolve the individuality and you just experience pure eternity. And then beyond that is
beyond infinity.
beyond eternity is that eternal, infinite presence that you have merged both. You have merged with both.
You've gone full circle.
You have the above and the below, and the in and the without have become one thing. It is that complete. It is the perfected philosopher's stone.
The union of opposites.
Yes. So, but the reality is that a Buddha is an awakened being. And the Buddha can be any degree of wakefulness. From classically speaking, a fully enlightened individual, or a Buddha does not necessarily have to be a fully enlightened individual, but can be a awakened being who is on that path of full awakening. So it's really important to understand when people are saying wake up, and when people are saying, oh, I'm on a spiritual path, there's a degree of like, what is the actual goal? Like, what is the, to quote you, what is the point?
Yeah.
Okay? So this is where, me and my friends, when we were studying with our teacher S, we were all like, enlightenment or bust, okay? And that is like a lifelong pursuit of deepening the practice, perpetually deepening that practice. However, the mystic is the middle path, the one who is like embracing life in society, who is looking to explore and understand their conscious awareness from a direct experience level. And what you started, the levels of meditative depths that you began to experience in that first practice, in that first sit, was where we begin to see how powerful and malleable our awareness actually is. To where if we just know how to shift our attention,
the person can just disappear.
Your entire reality changes. That is like your assemblage point. Your assemblage point is shifting. So the mystic learns to consciously shift their awareness at will. And they learn to do that through direct experience.
They're training the muscle that shows them that it's possible to even follow through on the experience.
Exactly. And that is mysticism. And as a result of gaining access to quote Amber, by walking the pattern, that doesn't mean you have the experience of shifting worlds 10,000 times. It means you now have the ability, and all of those princes and princesses of Amber learn how to shift the world when they leave Amber. And it's a infinite game at that point, okay? For those of you that don't know, the Chronicles of Amber is one of the best science fiction fantasy series ever written. And you should totally go read it. I'm not going to spoil the fun for you. But the way that the royal family learns to shift reality is very similar to the way that the mystic learns to shift their awareness. And so the mystic, having gone into light, has loosened their integrated entrapment of their awareness in the physical realm. So the mystic learns to dissolve that connection to the matrix, and then is learning how to recreate the reality around the life they want to live, the chosen experience, and also reform the self. Because when you're saying you got the disconnection and you saw, this is a character. Where do I apply these skill points of experience? The mystic creates the self upon re-emerging from light.
Yeah, part of what I was visualizing when you were describing this is that, like, you know, with the idea of the like a graph or a network, that like there's nodes that are connected to each other, and that like we're experiencing life through the individual as a node in the graph, and that once we can kind of, like, you know, when you're on a map and you're kind of zooming out and you're zooming out, you're stepping out of being in the node and you start looking at the graph altogether. And then, you know, with like Obsidian or whatever, you can take one of those cards or one of the graphs or one of the nodes in the graph, and you can look at the properties or the metadata or the content that's in the body and be like, hey, whatever story's in here is not working for how this node is supposed to, or how to, you know, make this node participate in the way that I would like for it to participate into reality.
Yeah.
So a lot more intentionality can be applied, or like the change that it's being applied at is at like a higher level.
Yes.
And so it like it transcends trying to make change in physical reality.
Yeah.
And it starts abstracting up to like higher level principles to make those changes.
Yes.
So that they trickle back down.
Yep.
And as your consciousness embeds back into the network,
yes,
it brings, you know, all that novel information to be able to make the changes it needs.
Okay, so now what you're starting to allude to is the influence that mystical meditation and discipline action has on the causal structure of one's being. The causal structure is where is the you have eternity, causal, astral, material. Okay? The causal is the realm of intent. It is also, we have this thing called a causal structure, which is a luminous body of light. It's you could call it what people call the soul. This is where the soul resides. However, there's a lot of layers to this, and now we could start unpacking the difference between the Western esoteric view of the soul and the Eastern esoteric view of the soul, which is irrelevant at this point in time, because we have the causal structure, which contains all of the habits, karma, and all the karmic habits and information or data from all lifetimes, stored in this causal structure body. And we're here in this we're this like little ball of light, and then through the increase of density and the flow of energy through space and time, we manifest in the material world. Right. So when we meditate in light, we are constantly placing our attention on
going back up the chain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. We are moving back up the chain, and we are learning to center our awareness in the causal, because that is the first form of individuality.
I'm not playing as the video game character. I'm playing as the player playing the video game character.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. And at that point, when you center your awareness in the causal, when you go into light, you begin to experience all the manifestations of your desires. All the different qualities of light are the reflections of your state of mind, your desires, and your intentions.
Like when you look at the light diffracting through the prism, it's
Yes.
like your being or your body is that prism, and light is penetrating through you, and
your mind. Your mind is the prism. And there's more to that. There's the mind, there's the emotions, all the things that you perceive to be you is that prism, to a degree. But
Right.
but mainly, it's the prism, and the simplest explanation is your mental modifications. And
the filter.
The filter. And that can be a result of the electromagnetic flow in your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
That could be your mind, your emotional state, your psyche, your psychology, your experiences in this lifetime. Those are all inputs into the prism.
Different layers of filters.
Yes. So the mystic learns to dissolve the mental modifications.
I mean, you can just choose what story you want to believe in. That like person A and B both have the same experience. One has like a positive reaction to it. The other one has a negative reaction. And that like they ultimately got to choose whether they wanted to perceive it as a positive or a negative thing in their life.
Yes.
And that mental construct is what, created the filter of like either blocking the light or enabling the light to pass through more effectively.
Exactly. Yep. And so the mystic is exercising their awareness. The thing is that the light begins to dissolve the mental modifications and structures, because we are perceiving truth directly. And the reason why we can perceive truth directly is because we have learned to stop thought. We have learned to quiet the mind. And the mind is generating the subjective experience.
And the mind can really locally only hold like one perspective at a time, so it can
Yes.
never witness the whole truth.
Exactly.
The only way to witness truth is to be able to see kind of the truth from all angles. And when you're like standing on one side of the portrait, you can only see part of the view.
I would say it's not even to see the truth, because that is only the first. To see the truth is a subjective experience, and the truth is objective. It's the
It
truth.
just is,
It's the truth, right? So the samadhis, or the awakening, or the liberation, is a degree of merging with the truth, which is what we call the Dharma, because the truth has a flow. It has a movement that is perfect. It is perfected because it is truth, and truth cannot be subjective or partial. So this is where karma becomes dharma, where you have immersed yourself in the truth, where you have experienced the clear light, where you have merged with the clear light of reality. And now there is a part of you that is forever changed, that is imprinted. And the rest of your individual subjective life experience
has to reconcile that you touch that truth.
And what you do with it.
Yeah.
And this is where the mystic focuses, the mystic becomes forever changed through that immersion, because you can't go back.
Yeah.
You have swallowed the pill.
Yeah.
And you can try to ignore that, but now you are acting in accordance with ad-dharma.
Yeah, that's how you build all the bad karma.
Which
like
is
you
painful.
already know better. Yeah.
It's extremely painful.
Yeah.
So this is where the path of mysticism is the most direct path, because it is devoid of dogma, religion, conditioning, ideology, and it is just pure experience of light.
Yeah, no one needs to like convince you to believe in anything, and that like ultimately if you believe something, it's because you don't know it. And so only really through like the knowledge or the direct experience of something can you go and transcend beyond belief.
Yes.
That belief requires you to act on partial information, but truth is all of the information.
Correct.
So once you hit that critical point, then like you said, there's no going back.
Yes.
I mean, you can go back, but it's going to be a painful process.
It's suffering.
Yeah.
This is where the mystic through their developmental process learns to align their life to the most direct and purest understanding of their dharma in this lifetime. And when we are acting out of alignment with the dharma and our dharma, we experience suffering. So the mystic who immerses themselves in light, who knows the truth, who understands to a degree of what their life is meant to be as an organism in this ecosystem, and doesn't follow that purpose, begins to suffer unnecessarily.
Yeah, it faces all the friction and resistance that comes from being out of alignment with like your natural state of being.
Exactly. And so people, we have, as a species, we have a lot of things that cause suffering in this world. We have war, famine, politics, stress, all these things, right? Our world is not harmonious. We are living at a time in humanity's evolution where harmony is not the natural state of the human civilization, I will say. Nature is always looking to equalize itself in harmony. But we are alive in a time where the individual has to seek out harmony in order to cease suffering.
Right, that like nature, because of the expression of its consciousness, has maybe less degrees of freedom
Yes.
that human beings have. That, you know, all the other creatures and beings are not actively influencing or modifying their environments through their consciousness to try to like be something beyond what they are or to experience life outside of their dharma.
Yes.
And it's through those degrees of freedom that we get to express so much diversity and so much color as human beings, and that's why we're able to do, you know, very many wonderful transformations. But in that same, you know, freedom, it also opens up the opposite side or the other door, which is like chaotic and disordered and corrupting, and all of these things take us away from like the ability to follow through on that path of least resistance.
Yes. And what we begin to practice in our meditation is to become fluid, because it is through the experiences of the lifetime that we learn to become resistant.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a child, our natural state is innocence and fluidity. And when we go into light, we are dissolving more of what has kept us stuck and rigid. Okay? And so we learn to work with the energy centers of consciousness. The chakras, these are spheres of consciousness. They are not necessarily energy. They are generators of fields of consciousness.
And the same way that like the cells and the organs in our body, like they all have their job and they're all doing their thing and they're doing it all coherently.
Yes.
And that they have their own individual form of being. Like
Yes.
the cell is kind of, you know, flowing through the blood and
Right.
doing what it needs to do, and it has its own like state of self.
Yep.
But that state of self is part of a greater being.
Yes.
And so when that greater being, you know, goes through harm, like getting a cut, the whole being organizes itself and its resources to be able to address that cut, which is not necessarily how human beings at like a civilization scale operate.
Correct. Right. So when we learn as a mystic, we learn to meditate on these centers and bring more awareness into these centers, and where our attention goes, energy flows. So when we merge our awareness with these centers, we increase the amount of energy and awareness flowing through them, which has a upward influence on our consciousness and a external outward flow of awareness. So when we meditate on these centers, our experience of reality shifts, because we are fundamentally attuning and changing the inputs of what's affecting the clear data lake.
Yeah.
which is generating the experience of reality.
Yeah, everything that's going. With the analogy of the prism, like even our energy centers are demarcated by the same colors, the 7 colors that prism refracts. And so like I just imagine our body as like a, you know, if we're made in the image of God, that image of God is like a, you know, a translation of like this fundamental ontology, and that the light passing through us is only passing through us as much as those energy centers are allowing the energy to pass through.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if we have like a, you know, sickness in any part of our lives related to those forms of consciousness, like if you're overeating or you have like,
or if you're just unconscious,
yes,
unaware.
you
Yeah.
don't even know that those outlets of energy exist, so
Yep.
you can't. I mean, they almost feel like buttons on a remote that like you can push the button to like
Yep.
trigger the flow of energy through
Yep.
that center, and that once we get the flow of energy to, perpetually move itself through the entire body, then that is like the arc reactor from Iron Man, basically producing limitless toroidal energy.
And then at a certain point, well, yeah, that's the final stage of one of the chakras opening. It becomes, so first it just starts out like as a ball, right, emanating, and then it begins to spiral energy outward, like a cyclone.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the light fully passes through and opens, quote unquote, the chakra becomes a toroid. And it's emanating outward and inward simultaneously, to a degree.
It's the ever-recursive system of energy.
Yes. So back to your experience of creating separation from the subjective matrix and being like, oh, whoa, it's the Plato's cave analogy.
Yeah,
right?
I'm subscribing to that reality,
Yeah.
but it's not really what's going on.
Right. It's where majority of my attention and consciousness is anchored. Okay. So now, you saw the shadows on the wall
Mm-hmm.
in Plato's cave.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. You saw the shadows on the wall.
Yes.
Okay. And then you saw that one of the shadows on the wall disappeared.
Yes.
Okay. So in that moment, there's two things happening. Me as the facilitator in that moment is merging my awareness with light.
So anti-shadow.
Which means that I am dissolving I'm dissolving the subjective self, the created self in that moment.
So it's kind of like you're logging out of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And exactly. And so my created individual self at that moment expands to become
If matter
the space.
If matter is dense,
Yes.
then like it's compactifying energy into a smaller volume, and because light has no mass or photons have no mass, that like you shouldn't appear at all if
Right.
you've been translated, or if you're transforming that mass into energy.
And the reason and so just to clarify something here, when you merge with light, it's not like a 0 to 100. It's like
it was a gradient.
It's
Yeah.
there's so many decimal points of gradiency here. Okay,
Yeah.
to fully dissolve oneself with eternity into nirvikalpa samadhi, which is the first stage of liberation, requires 51% merging with eternity, 49% infinity.
You kind of flip the binary, or
Yes.
you flip the bit.
So
Yeah.
right now, we are in degrees of infinity. And the more conscious you become, the more awake you become, the more aware, the more you become rooted in consciousness.
You get closer to being to that 50% or
Yes.
the 51% on average more frequently.
Or beyond that. And then the way that my teacher explained it to me was that when you become classically enlightened, which would be sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi, or a waking state of enlightenment, you are rooted in that eternal awareness, and your subjective individual life contains essentially an avatar of the awakened presence in the eternal space, but you also simultaneously become aware of that lifetime outside of time and space.
I suppose that part of the way that I'm like conceptualizing this is that to keep going into the video game analogy, that like this is one player character in one of the games, and that like
This is one.
or one of the characters
Yeah.
that the player is playing.
Yes.
And so like if I open up my Steam console or
Yep.
whatever, I have a lot of different games in there, and I'm different characters in all of those different games.
Yep.
And from the player's perspective, I have access to the, worldwide, net of all of the knowledge of the universe. So I can
Yep.
go on my FAQs, I can go into Discord and talk
Yep.
to the other souls.
Yeah.
I can go reference a different video game and kind of see like how the mechanics worked in that game and roll them over into the skills and perceptions and knowledge that I have in the other games that I'm playing.
And that is accessible both in the individual finite and also outside of that as well. So that is awareness, the ability to shift your attention to become aware of a different subjective experience of reality or a different dimension of experience. So as you can see, awakening is actually a very meta thing.
Yeah, you're kind of like flipping or like almost inverting your
Yes.
perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, the idea of the universe as like the you inverse
Yes.
very much kind of like resonates with that idea for me.
Totally. So you saw the shadows on the wall.
Yes.
One of the shadows disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just saw the wall behind the shadow.
Correct.
Okay. Now, tell me about the any other visual phenomenal experiences.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the most significant. And then, another part of it too was like even just like having my eyes focus on something for that long
Yes.
was something that was also like when you're kind of zoning out and you can kind of like start seeing doubles of things.
Yeah.
Like there was a little bit of that happening, so I had to kind of like soften my gaze enough. Like it's kind of like creating enough tension
Yes.
to be able to hold the state.
Right.
But like holding that state for so long is kind of like holding a plank, I guess.
Yep.
That you kind of have to get used to like what the sweet spot is, and then being able to relax
Yes.
into a sufficient amount of tension to be able to trigger that state of consciousness.
Totally.
And so there was a little bit of experimenting with that like, our eyes are creating one field of view.
Yep.
And that's because both eyes are focusing on the same point. And when you have your eyes look at something further away, your eyes actually like move towards more being centered, pointing outwards.
Right.
And when something's close to you, you cross your eyes more.
Yep.
And so part of, playing around with that was like, okay, if I have my eyes like straightened out, like can I witness or observe what's between my eyes instead of just like seeing like directly through where my eyes are pointing at?
Right.
And like there was like I could almost feel like there's like a ball or like an orb of like undefined form that existed between the space where my eyes were making focus. So it's almost that like the idea of focus exists independently of my eyes.
Yes.
But, like my eyes are creating a physical form of
Yes.
perception,
Yeah.
but like I could create focus, like a visual focus with the open eye meditation without using my eyes.
Correct.
And so that like ball of focus is like something that like if you look at the sky, that ball of focus is very far away.
Yes.
And if you look at your finger, that ball is very close. So technically, like your eyes are kind of like locking into where the focus is, rather than your eyes really creating the focus. So that was, I think, like part of the visual experience that I was experimenting with is like, how can I decouple my focus, like my perceived, like abstract focus, away from like my physical perception of my eyes creating the focus.
Yeah.
So that type of decoupling too also helped me like step outside of the body to be able to perceive where my intent was concentrated.
So all of what you had just said, which was a very well meta inspiring breakdown, you have alluded to something very important, that awareness is not just one factor, like one variable.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually a series of variables that make up what you are aware of in the moment.
It's collapsing the wave function into a single state.
Yes.
And so like the wave function itself has many variables and states associated with it. And eventually you need to pick, the spin and the charge and all these things to make it like one thing instead of just being
Yes.
amorphously like very many possible things.
Now you have just began to have the physical experience of yoga. So if yoga is union, and we first learn to master our attention through the awareness of the mind-body connection, you have now added in the spiritual faculty of awareness, which is more of a psychic, energetic type field, right? So if you can focus visually on something in the distance, but you can retain your energetic awareness to be closer, you are now using two facets of awareness.
You're decoupling them.
Yep. And every mystic from every tradition learns how to place their attention in multiple places at once.
That seems mind-boggling. I've been so only in one attention for so long that like trying to, it's almost like unfathomable to like decouple them.
Well,
I mean, the experience definitely gave me the direct understanding.
And that is just started. You went from 1 to like 1.2. And
progress.
Okay, and then beyond, it's being aware of dimensions at the same time, physical, non-physical.
So like it's almost like a tolerance or like a load for how much information you can process at one time.
Exactly. Yep.
And that like without the development of consciousness, it's like basically giving you the default or kind of like the baby mode version of reality. And then when you're able to expand your awareness, you're able to hold more information.
It becomes less overwhelming.
That's a good point. Yeah. That a lot of these really like high states of ecstatic experience, they feel overwhelming. And so like,
because the vessel is overwhelmed.
Right.
And the vessel is not just the physical body, it is the awareness, the mind, the emotions. But now you begin to see where people go insane.
Yeah. I can see how you get lost in the corridors of all of those different perceptions. And if you decouple them without like an ability
to
like,
reassemble
them. Yeah, that sounds pretty scary. I would not want to get lost in that dark forest.
So it's mysticism, it's a very clean path. And because you're learning to exercise your attention and your awareness through direct experience of living a good life, clean energy, food, all this stuff, right? It's a very clean path, very tight attention.
And it really seems like the increments that you can undergo should never really put you in that big of a state of duress.
Because you're very rarely going from 0 to 10.
Yeah, which, a lot of substances or medicines, like they take you way farther than you would normally be able to do on your own.
The real element why people who take plant medicine, they always talk about integration, right? Well, how do you integrate?
You're reassembling the pieces.
Well, yeah, but if you have a 1 to 1.1 experience and you're like, oh damn, that just changed my life, and then you go from 1 to 10,
you can't hold basically anything that you encountered.
You barely remember it. Yeah. Because you're now.
You're like almost traumatized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that is in the shamanic paths, that's necessary to break you from the encapsulation in the Maya.
It's like someone coming to your room with a pot and a pan and being like, wake up, instead of like someone coming in and nudging you and being like, hey, you awake yet?
Yep. Okay. So many people who experience plant medicine at a young age, like myself, the
wake up call,
the earthquake to the psyche happens. And and sometimes a small crack. And that small crack is how the light gets in. Now, you begin a search because you're like, whoa, I just experienced something that is outside of the normalness of my understanding. And then you begin to search for a spiritual path. And instead you encounter a lot of these dogmatically centered spiritual traditions, and you're like, wow, this isn't...
I definitely don't agree with that,
Yeah,
because that's not what I experienced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you have to go beyond the esoteric traditions to find it. And even a lot of the esoteric traditions are heavily influenced by dogma, religion, and social cultural influences, right?
Yeah, people are having their own heavy psychic experiences, and they're projecting that as like the way instead of just showing it as one of the ways.
Or or their paradigm of understanding projects the experience through something that they understand more of. Right. So it's like Christians see the stigmata, or the Catholics see the tears of Mary, right? It's like these are mystical experiences and states of awareness that are being filtered through the psyche's paradigm of understanding.
In the same way that like the dreams that we have are not necessarily like literal translations of our understanding of things.
Right.
They come to us in symbolic form because symbols are much more dense with information, so it's easier for us to receive those symbols than the totality of all that information that we could be receiving.
Yep. So we learn to... So first, you have this extreme moment of awakening or awareness, and you're like, whoa, nothing is as it seems. And then you begin to follow a path. And most people, when they look for a path, a majority of paths focus on ethics and morals, because that was the developmental structure of society, of human civilization. How do we go from warring and killing each other to a structured, civilizational movement of evolution? So it becomes a very interesting thing when you look at the evolution of one's awareness and consciousness as part and parcel or separate from the evolution of human civilization. It's almost like human civilization gets stuck in a specific energetic paradigm that the next age of humanity looks to evolve past.
And even with like morals and ethics, like something that seemed good at the time, like 100 years ago, is totally not cool now. So like, for one, it's not like temporally consistent.
Yes.
And then the other, like, I mean, even locally within a time period, you'll have so many people disagree about the same ethics and principles because they're subjective. Or at least they're like partially subjective.
Right.
Or they're intersubjective in some way. And that like when you're interacting with consciousness directly, you're interfacing with an objective truth. Yeah. And that requires the mind to be able to like create the circumstances or organize the experience of the body to be able to be at peace, check out, let the, consciousness observe as is without all the filters. And that's not necessarily like how people are taught to pray or how to meditate.
Right.
They're all guided to try to like embed something into the subconscious or into the programming rather than trying to remove the programming altogether.
Bingo. Yeah. So, any other statements of experience or questions?
Yeah. I would say that there's two more aspects of the experience.
Yeah.
One is that like kind of in that state when you're, checked out, I guess.
Yep.
That like some of it I was kind of just at peace, just witnessing. And then the other times I had like lots of, thoughts go through my mind, and also like I was receptive to not necessarily the thoughts that other people were having, but I could feel like other energy in the room. So that was kind of like, us tuning into that kind of greater consciousness that we're sharing.
The egregore.
The egregore.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the space. Mm-hmm. You become aware of the space.
Yeah. If I'm like stepping outside of my body, then I have the capacity to interact with a broader volume of
Right.
energy.
Yep.
So that one, I kind of, went through some processes and everything in there, but like, I don't think that anything was like so distinct. I would say that the last like, kind of like experiential component that I had is that like being long enough in like the checked out phase, like all the colors started going away.
Yep.
And so I started getting into a point where I could see like gray and white kind of overlaying one another. It was
Yep.
almost like a fog or like a smoke.
Yep.
And so it was kind of like, the first layer was like kind of like checking out of, the Erik perception of things. And then the next layer of that was like checking out of like the energetic perception of things. And so like at some point, like there's just nothing left to perceive.
Yes.
And so black and white is kind of like the taiji, like the
Yes.
universal one consciousness of being that like has both dualities wrapped into it. And so it was like, it's not like static, I would say, but it kind of had that type of like, I mean, static is a very like digital kind of interpretation of
I know exactly what
black
you
and
mean.
white. Yeah, but this was like much more fluid, I would say.
Yep. Was there a question?
No, that was kind of at the end of the experience. But,
Okay.
Something we had talked about was that like, part of stealing the experience is that like, okay, the first part of it's kind of like stepping back from the body.
Yep.
And then the second part of it is kind of like stepping back from like the feelings or the emotions or the stories that we have playing. And then the third part of it is like stepping back through the mind or stepping back away from the mind, like all the chatter and all these different things. And so you're kind of like turning off different components of awareness. Like when we were talking about the energy centers, the chakras being like...
You're not turning off different components of awareness. You are dissolving the structure of filters. You're dissolving, you're stopping thought. You're stopping the activity of the mind, which is the perpetual generated experience of filtered perception.
Right, that like it's creating the diffraction of the light that's coming into you.
And
so
you're
when
lessening that more and more.
And so I guess like you...
That is meditation. That is meditation. Turning off the filter to experience truth directly.
Right, the prism is no longer like refracting the light. You just have light passing through directly.
Yes.
So like when we were together that night, part of the way that you were describing it to me was through a system that I understand, which is like the Kabbalistic Tree of Life system.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of understanding, I'm turning off the practical triad, or I'm integrating the practical triad, and then I'm integrating the ethical triad, and then I'm like integrating or dissolving the supernal triad. And so like kind of in that state of like all of those forms or like aspects of the tree being integrated into like, I'm not just looking at, reality through like all of the layers of the Sephiroth. Yeah. I'm looking at the tree itself. So
you're watching the tree create itself, and vice versa, deconstruct itself.
A toroid.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess like part of and maybe this is part of the ongoing story that like having that experience made it very abundantly clear to me like how direct all of that can be. That like there isn't any dependency on any teacher,
zero,
or any book. Or anyone else, really. Like, all you got to do is kind of like...
You are that manifested.
And these are, I think the idea of the reflection is so interesting that, like, part of the way that you were describing it is, like, you can look into a candle. You can look into a mirror of a reflection. Or you can do the open eyes gazing with, like, a facilitator.
Yep.
But then ultimately, like, those are all just different emanations or sources of light.
Yes.
But like the human being is an emanation of light.
Yep.
The fire is obviously an emanation of light, and the mirror of you is you reflecting your own emanation.
Yep.
So I guess like part of what I'm like
getting to
curious about.
Yeah.
Is that like if this practice is so independent, like how do you teach it well?
How do you teach it well?
Yeah.
Well, the entire practice is experiential.
Right. And it seems like it's hard to teach someone, like I'm not prescribing you what to experience.
Right.
Like, I'm just asking you about what your experiences are and like where the common threads of that experience relate to some other.
Are you asking, how do I teach this? Or are you asking
the reason why I'm asking
why teach it like this?
Probably both. But
Okay.
The first question is like asking you how you teach it, because like if we have these sessions and I have to
Yep.
go home,
Yeah.
like essentially I'm teaching it to myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's I guess like why I'm curious, like how you teach it to yourself,
Yeah.
and then also how you teach it to others, because I think that
Okay.
the style is maybe a little different, even if the principles are kind of fundamental.
Everyone's going to have a subjective perspective or perception of it. So, okay. So, our teacher S, he wanted all of us to teach together, okay? And he was very clear. He was like, the first year, no teaching. The second year, you teach together, all right? And so, and he was like, all of you, he's like, the most important thing when you teach is going into light. Because that is the unified experience outside of subjective perspective and interpretation.
Everyone's got that.
The main thing's the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And now one person may resonate and may understand video game meta analogies as their primary mode of understanding.
Right.
Another person might be very Taoist in nature. Another person, Buddhism, another Christianity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have all of these fractal kaleidoscopic views, and some are very historically anchored paths,
Mm-hmm.
and others are what he called cosmopolitan. Okay?
That's a funny word for that, but I think I understand what that means.
So his whole thing, he was like, I teach cosmopolitan spirituality. That was his whole thing. And that's what this is.
Maybe define for me what you mean by cosmopolitan spirituality.
An eclectic blend.
A little bit of here, a little bit
Yes.
it's a buffet, and you're just putting a bunch of stuff on your plate.
You take what's useful and you leave the rest. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so like for me, so I understood a lot of the things that he would teach, and a lot of the experiences and a lot of the metaphysical elements I began to understand intellectually
Mm-hmm.
through different forms of education. Okay, so direct experience of like meditation or a metaphysical, mystical phenomena, right? Where it's like he's showing me something or giving me an experience, and then years later, I'm like, oh, that's what that was.
You witness it outside.
Yes. And so there's two things happening here. True spiritual teaching, true mystical teaching is transmission-based.
You got to have some way of communicating the idea to others.
Beyond the mind. It is direct experience. So this is where, so like there's this, like the secret teachings. You've ever, like different traditions call these different things, like the secret teachings, the hidden teachings, things like that. It's because you can't teach the full depth of the teaching through language.
Yeah.
Because it is limited by the mind, by the cultural language, by the cultural understanding of the word. So what influences the subconscious, or what teaches beyond language? Experience, sound, light, vibration, sensory information.
Mm-hmm.
That then the mind, through self-reflection and mindfulness,
Comes up with an interpretation.
or a direct understanding, and this can also come through gnosis or intuition. So the primary mode of teaching in mysticism is transmission. Transmission of energy, transmission of consciousness. Transmission of Shiva, consciousness, transmission of energy, Shakti. Okay? Now you have the two pillars.
Yeah.
Okay? And both of those are required to experience the full unity of eternity.
Yeah, once you get both sides balanced, the energy can just shoot straight down.
Yes. So it's that is the true fundamental thing of teaching. So when I teach, it's, hey, this thing changed my life. It's super cool. You want to experience this.
Yeah.
Like trust me.
I made a very tasty dish.
Yeah.
It tastes amazing.
Yes.
All you have to do is try it.
All you have to do is try it. Just once.
Yeah.
Okay? And some people are like, eh. Some people are like, whoa. And some people are like, that. You know? And that's just the thing, is like, some people are not at most people don't understand what they actually experience.
Mm-hmm.
The other people are not spiritually mature enough through their karmic evolutionary cycle to look for that, because their attention is focused on desires. And then some people who are looking avidly for spiritual truth in their life are like, I don't know what that was, but yo, sign me. Like, that was real. That whatever that was real, right? That was when I first went into light with my first teacher, who was one of S's students. When I first went into light, I had no idea what I experienced, but I was like, whatever this is, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most real thing.
When you feel truth, like, no one can take it away from you. It's just undeniable.
It's undeniable. And like, I just experienced light, purple, black, like it dissolved my entire understanding of reality. And I was like, whatever this is like,
That's it.
this was like the voice of God from the heavens for me, type of thing, right? And it's like, obviously I didn't have that experience in the moment. Later on, yes, but in the moment, different, right? It just, conceptual understanding of reality dissolved, just a direct spiritual experience of light, and my mind stopped thinking. Like, I stopped thought.
And the peace that comes with that.
And that's where you're like, I'm in. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Whatever that was, I'm down for.
I'll take 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll give some out to other people if they're interested in it too.
Okay. And then you have my friend says that our teacher gave us the old bait and switch. He says, which he didn't. In my opinion, he didn't. Where he was like, we're going to do all these things together. We're going to run businesses together. We're all going to make a bunch of money. Like, it's like he was always about the dream, the vision, the dream, right? Because that's like part of what you do as a leader, is you cast the dream and you're like, this is where I want to go, is everybody down, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a very good dream for humanity. The vision he had for the world, everyone was like, yeah, sounds better than what we got now, you know?
Yeah.
Right? So, and then he gave us what we needed disguised as what we wanted. Okay? So he's like, you think you want to make millions of dollars, when in reality, you want internal peace.
Yeah, that money's trying to buy you those things, but you could just skip that step. You don't need to do
Exactly,
that.
okay? Then he came to the part to where he's like, all of your wildest dreams will come true. Because when you meditate in light, you see your desires, the ones that you're not even aware of, they manifest as light. The reason why some people become super awake and enlightened really quickly is because they experience their desires in the form of light, and they dissolve the desire for the desire. Because they have...
the meta dissolving, yeah.
Okay? And essentially, when you have no desire left, that is where it's just straight shot into eternity.
So I guess like that idea of desire is pretty interesting for me for a couple of different reasons. Like, one, that, you know, whether you want to subscribe to this perspective or not, that like you chose to be here now as you are instead of being anything else.
Yeah.
So like there was intent around being what you're experiencing.
Causal impulse.
Yes. Something like led for you to be here, and it was, you know, whether it was intentional or not, it just is.
And you incarnated.
Yeah. And so...
Welcome to the show!
We are in party time.
Yes.
And so, like, part of, you know, choosing where to go is obviously having preferences. Unless you chose, like, totally at random, which I've seen enough things not be random to get that there's something beyond just pure
The randomness
noise and
is
randomness.
organized.
Yes, the randomness is organized.
At a increasingly grand scale.
Yeah. And so in that sense, like, I understand that locally or subjectively, there's always preference.
Yes.
And those preferences necessarily lead you to have desires because now you're trying to maximize the quantity of the satisfaction of that preference. That
Yes.
like, if I prefer to,
You-
live on the beach, then I'm going to need a lot of money to be able to make that possible to satisfy my preference
Or
my
not-
desire.
Or not a lot of money, and you just move to a third world country and live on the beach.
Right. I guess, yeah,
Right?
that's a combination of preferences.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess like part of what I'm trying to reconcile is that like I accept that I have these preferences and that from these preferences are born desires that
Yep.
like, the state that I'm in now with the preferences that I have, I'm not satisfied.
Yep.
And so the desire is coming from a lack, that like
Perceived lack.
perceived lack. Yes. That like I don't have enough of this thing that I know I want.
Yep.
And so the idea of like dissolving the desires, I understand could be interpreted as like not wanting anything and sitting in a hut and like
Yep.
totally detaching from
In the
reality.
cave.
Yeah, in the cave. And it's like, why would you be alive if like you just came to sit in a cave? Like
Well, that's where your individual dharma comes into play. What is the purpose of your individual lifetime?
of the preferences that you have. Yeah.
Yes. And so everybody has this causal structure where the impulse and the intention for the lifetime exists. So part of it is the self-discovery process of who and what you are on a subjective and objective level, and simultaneously, what is your understanding, what is your deepening understanding of that purpose, which is self-created, which is rooted in a higher dimensional place, but you learn to feel the directional flow of it, right?
Right.
So our teacher was very much about these things called Dharma projects, and Dharma projects were intentional self-study or practices or projects that you would use as a mindfulness exercise,
To cultivate your perception of your own dharma.
and to manifest it in the world. Yeah. So you meditate, you go into light, you dissolve, you begin a dharma project, and you consciously create your experience and what you're doing with that experience in the world.
That's how you're paving your path back from amber to the shadow world.
Bingo.
And-
You are consciously choosing which reality to incarnate into.
If you go all the way up to a space of no structure,
Yes.
then you can kind of path your way back down
Through
into
in-
the ideal structure.
Through intentionality.
Yeah, like how am I weaving my way through the roads of
Yes.
consciousness to arrive
Yes.
where I, am intending to go?
Yes, exactly. So, that is the whole point. There's this Sanskrit word called the ahankara, right? Which means the creative self, the created self. The created self is the self that you choose to create moment to moment, day to day. So when you dissolve your understanding of yourself because you are perpetually moving, when you meditate in light, you become more true to yourself because your awareness becomes more of your essence,
Yeah, you're
which is
abstracting
light.
to like a more fundamental level of being.
Exactly. And so you're becoming more true to yourself, and as a result of becoming more true to yourself, anything that is not true to you is painful because it's not true.
Yeah.
It is karmic rather than dharmic.
Yeah, why am I wasting my time on this thing that doesn't have anything to do with me?
Exactly. Not my circus, not my monkey.
Yeah.
Okay? So you just go live your life, and you live your life to to the greatest understanding, and through your practice and your mindful application, that becomes a deepening experience of your purpose. So
Yeah, and I guess like the last like kind of topic that I want to kind of explore in that.
well, there was one thing on top of real quick before we jump into that. So you said, how do you teach this, right?
Right.
You teach it through glowing. You just sit there, you meditate, you go into light, you glow. You're holding a wavelength.
You're just being the example that everyone else needs.
You are, exactly, right?
It's like I see you doing that.
Yep.
I am also a person, so
Yep.
I should also be able to do that same thing.
Exactly. So you say, look, the moon.
Yeah.
Don't look at my finger, look at the moon. Okay? Right? And everyone's like, the moon, the hand.
So fascinating.
Right? So like, in Toy Story, when like all those little aliens, the little Martians are like, the claw, right?
Yeah.
But really it's like oh, we're in a game. We're in a box, right? And everyone's like, the claw. So it's like when you sit there and you meditate and you glow, really you're like, look, here's the light. And everyone's just like, the guru. And it's like, no, you're missing the point.
Yeah, look with a different perspective.
Yes. So that now you can see how religion is started. Rather than
they're worshiping the guru rather
exactly
than the moon that they're pointing to.
Right, but when you look at it from the Vedic perspective, it's God, guru, self, all the same. The guru is only as useful as their ability to allow undifferentiated, pure divinity flow through them. Pure divinity meaning undifferentiated consciousness and eternal expression of love.
The non-self.
The non-self, right. So if the guru then starts putting his own desires and projections on top of that filtered flow, he no longer becomes the pure guru. He is now part-time guru.
Yeah.
Okay? So even for me as a teacher, like my whole intention when I teach is to remove myself as much as possible and just hold that wavelength, which is an increase, like to hold that wavelengths of pure and undifferentiated awareness of light, and to hold that to the best of my ability in the moment, so that everybody can experience whatever depth they can experience.
Yeah, they get as far as they can in relationship to you. And
the thing is, the teacher, the facilitator, is why did I disappear? How do you think I disappeared?
Because you became light.
Okay. What happens is that my awareness, the awareness of the facilitator expands to the room. Okay? So you inherently become everybody. You become connected to everybody. And then you see what is blocking them from perceiving a greater depth of light. And you absorb that into you because that is the fog. That is the shroud.
You're kind of including them in your energy and then
yes.
helping, like, as you have the capacity to cycle energy through
yes.
your toroidal field,
yes.
you're picking up the, garbage that they have in theirs and
yes.
cycling it out.
Yes. You are cleansing, your awareness is expanding and you're sucking it into your aura, and you are cleansing and removing the karmic veil of ignorance.
That's why so many people had like those thoughts or experiences of like traumas or things that aren't going well, because like those things are surfacing.
Yes.
Because those are preventing them from getting closer to the light.
Exactly. Okay. So the facilitator is absorbing that into themselves and is then taking on their karma.
Yeah. Yum, yum. It's a buffet.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where the individual, like, not everybody is meant to be a teacher because they don't have the capacity for that.
Yeah.
Like I have to take care of myself physically, energetically, and, I have to exercise. I have to get healing work done myself to help do this. But it's also like, I love to do this. If I could do one thing in the world, sit there and glow.
Yeah.
Like, sit there, glow, and talk with
I'm
everybody.
a light bulb of consciousness.
Right. So like, this is my favorite thing in the world. I would just love to do this forever and ever, because this is what I have come to understand as my dharma. And also, when you tell a desire and an intent to a Buddha and they go, deal, oh boy, you're on the hook with that one. You have thumbprinted that contract into eternity. So it's a whole thing.
You have to be careful what you wish for type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I was the young gun. I was 24 and, stomach bigger than my eye, or eyes bigger than my stomach type of thing. And I need to get off here soon. And when we were going through Dharma projects, our teacher opened a door and he said, okay, what do you want your Dharma projects to be? And I said, teaching. And he's like, yeah, he's like, we both know that, but like something else. And I'm like, business and marketing. He's like, okay, what kind of marketing? Content. Okay, deal. Look at what I'm doing now. Okay, and then the next part, and I was like, well, somebody needs to do that, so I'll do that too. And he's like, okay, you already got 2 others. Do you want a third? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. Give me more.
Yum,
Yeah,
yum.
yum, yum. He's like, okay, branding, deal. Then it was like astrology, and he's like, you want that one too? I'm like, hell yeah.
Load up my plate.
And he's like, deal. So now I have these like 5 Dharma projects that I'm like on the hook for.
Yeah.
And the thing is when a teacher gives you an empowerment, you have to use it for the intended purpose of it. Otherwise, it begins to retrograde.
Yeah, it sounds like someone give you food and you're not eating it, it's gonna decay.
Right.
And then you're stuck with that food that's decaying and it's making everything nasty.
Right. So you got to use what it's for. And, so anyways, so you teach by keeping the main thing, which is light. Okay? And then the teacher is the facilitator, or the teacher is saying, hey, it would, if you try to doing this on your own, it's going to take a very long time. Let me give you a little slap on the butt.
A little boost.
A little boost. Seriously, they're giving an energy boost, a boost of consciousness. And they're saying, look, this is more. So the facilitator allows you to go deeper.
Because they can see a little bit further than you would otherwise be able to.
And the tuning fork effect, okay? If I'm vibrating here, everybody, through just pure resonance and open mind, open heart, can experience a higher level of awareness, but maybe not necessarily to the frequency that is actually being emanated, right? Because you have time constraints,
distance,
space,
and all these things.
all these things, right? And so you just say, hey, this is further. So they can go and then they can meditate a little bit better, and then they go home in their own practice. And then that is where their end of the bargain as a student is to practice every single day. Because otherwise, you're just coming there to get high.
Yeah.
For the free ride.
Yeah, free ride.
Okay? And I was very guilty of that for a while. I was like, oh, he's empowering us every single week. I kind of get the free ride. And then now I'm like, oh, man. I
got to do the push-ups yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no one's going to make you lose the weight, right?
Yeah.
It's like you got to do it. So, and he also had a whole thing. He's like, no one can outsource. He's like, you can't outsource your Dharma project. Because one of us did that. Like he paid somebody on the internet to do it, and he goes, you outsourced your Dharma project? And he's like, well, yeah, it saved me time. And he's like, that's not the point.
It's supposed to be you doing that.
Exactly, right. So anyways, the most important thing you do when you teach is just to glow. Is just to emanate, to be the purest source of love and awareness that you can. The second thing you do is you help the students go beyond their present karmic limitation, which as a result, you absorb some of that into yourself. So the facilitator always has to work harder than the students because he's taking on, as Jesus would call, the weight of the world.
Right? Getting put on the cross.
Yes. So then the third part is, how do you as a student teach yourself? Well, you go home and you practice to the best of your ability, and you start living a more mindfully aware life. And the reason why you go to a teacher is because a teacher or a facilitator can help you go somewhere with more speed and grace.
Yeah, they have the map and they know how to get from point A to B, and
Yep.
you see that there's a forest and there's probably some fountain of youth in the forest, but you're gonna get lost walking in that forest alone. So
Careful, a lot of thorns.
Yeah.
Right?
And some of those berries are not very edible.
Okay. So, exactly, they're not very edible. they contain 10,000 lives of poison.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So, and the reality is that we teach because we know what it's like to be in the other person's shoes, right? It is compassion. It is for the benefit of all beings. You are working to the best of you are living your life to the best possible understanding and expression that you can. And you teach what you know because you know what it's like to search, to seek, and to not have.
And you have your truth. So like that's the thing that you can feel the most certain about.
Yes.
Is that like you're gonna come to it in your own way.
Yeah.
But I know that we're all gonna come back to the same place.
Exactly.
And I just got a little bit of a head start figuring out what that is and where it's at, and I'll just show you the way.
Exactly. I'm only 1-2 steps ahead, but hey, this is how you can save years of heartbreak, trouble, and missteps in the process. Or here's how you do this faster. This is a better way. I tried it the way you're going down. This is better.
Yeah. And you can still do it too if you want. That's
Up to
totally
you.
on you.
No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
You know?
It's your path to walk.
Exactly. So, does this conclude?
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you so much.
All right. Excellent. Aho.
Aho.